What's up, guys? EDA here, and we're back with another review. This time covering UFC 305, a card that we previewed previously, and we were really excited for, especially the main event. And guys, it didn't disappoint. Going into the main event, we obviously had a lot of questions about how Adesanya would perform, how DDP would perform, and I summarized it by saying that it would take the best Adesanya to beat Dricus to Plessis, and if we didn't get the best Adesanya, Dricus would win, and that's exactly what he did. We still have the South African as the UFC champion, and it's deserved. He beats Adesanya via rear naked choke in the fourth round, and it was a performance that didn't overly impress. There were times where Adesanya had Dricus in trouble, and it wasn't a performance that I'll say he should be disappointed by, but he is now 1-3 in his last 4 fights. It's another blemish. He took the loss well in the lead up to the fight, which we didn't get to cover in the preview because it happened after the emotional press conference. It felt like he was either going to rise up to the occasion and deliver a great performance, or it just wouldn't work, and it just didn't work. Looking at the stats, and we're going to take a look through not only this fight but the rest of the fights on the card, give a quick review of this. Again, we mentioned Dricus not having the best aesthetically pleasing style, but he always finds a way to get the job done. Looked at points during the fight that Izzy had the best of him, if I'm going to be honest with you, but Dricus doesn't seem like he gives up. He keeps coming and he keeps coming and he keeps coming, and in the fourth round, just 10 seconds prior, Izzy was telling Dricus, let's stand and fight. 10 seconds later, he's tapping out, and I think that's more to show from the heart, the determination, the will of Dricus. 4 out of 9 takedowns. He had a dominant enough control time across the fight already. Wasn't as accurate, wasn't as effective in the striking as Izzy, which you wouldn't expect. But he showed himself as having championship mettle, and it seems like this kind of form of fighter is coming out in MMA a lot more. That well-rounded style of pressure striking and wrestling and takedowns, and being able to mix it in. We saw it with Bilal, we're seeing it with Dricus, we're seeing it with other areas within the MMA community as well. And so that well-rounded style, maybe the phasing out of specialists potentially, but that's something that should definitely be looked at, and I think that's something that is going to continue to reign. What's next for Dricus? Funnily enough, we had Alex Pereira come out and say he's willing to come back down to 185 to fight Dricus, which is crazy. I don't know how Alex makes that weight without killing himself, but if he's able to make it, that would be a crazy fight. And Dricus, came back and said, if he comes back, I'm gonna kill him, and it will be a crazy fight to have. But Dricus was also talking about coming up and wanted to fight for the belt. It'll be crazy to see what the UFC do if they're able to pull it off. I still think there's some work left to decide who Dricus needs to fight. Obviously, in the light heavyweight division, Alex is going to be fighting Khalil Roundtree, which is going to be really good. Unexpected, but looking forward to the fight. And yeah, it might be something that's in the pipeline for now, to be honest with you, but it would be very interesting to see how that goes. For Izzy, again, take the time. You don't need to rush back. What your next fight will be very, very interesting. You probably don't want to go up against a wrestle heavy style, but the most likely fight for you, if you want to stay relevant or in contention, is fighting the winner of Whittaker versus Chimaev. And probably if Whittaker wins that one, he should probably fight for the title. So hopefully Chimaev will probably be Izzy's big fight. But then that causes problems in its own right. You don't want to extend that losing streak that you're already on. So he needs to decide where he wants to go with his career. But I don't think he's finished. I think he's still got some tread left in the tyres. But another championship run, I'm not 100% sure. And if not, we've experienced a great fighter in the middleweight division across the UFC. But it seems like we've got a new reign in place, and Dricus is going to be fighting the best of the middleweight division has to offer, and it's excited to see who the UFC can bring him. In the co-main event, Kai Kara France versus Steve Erzek. Just going back to the Izzy Dricus fight, I said if I was going with my heart, I'll go with Izzy. If I was going with my head, I'll go Dricus. Head should have ruled, and I think going forward, my head will have to continue to kind of take the focus in these predictions, because I want to start keeping a tally of what I get right and what I get wrong based on my analysis, and not what I feel for a certain fighter. But saying that, I had a strong like and encouragement for Kai Kara France winning this fight against Steve Erzek. I based that on knowing Kai Kara France's style, very meticulous in terms of how he thinks about the game. But he's very forthcoming with his striking, knows how to defend himself as well, and he's not an easy person that you're going to run over in the flyweight division. Definitely not, unless he has an off night, and he did not have an off night. He came out, you can see that break worked well for him. He looked strong, even though Steve had the height advantage over him. Kai Kara France had the reach advantage over him, and he made sure it paid dividends. Getting that first round finish was impressive as hell, and it's what he needed, and it sets him up perfectly for what I've been hoping he gets, which is a title fight against Alex Pantoja. People might not rate that fight. You're looking at two of the best flyweights, without a doubt. Looking at two of the best flyweights, and people call Pantoja boring. I don't see it. I'm sorry. I think he's really exciting fighter, and I think he just needs the right dance partner. And I think Kai Kara France could be that person. Getting that knockout, knocking Steve Erzek out cold, pretty much brilliant. We love to see it. And Steve, again, I think he just continues to need to build himself out in the division, build his name, build his rep, work for it, same way that Kai Kara France had to. And I really like Steve Erzek as a person. Looking at the countdown, looking at the embedded shows, he's funny, and he seems like a really good guy. So wishing him all the best in his future fights. And another one where I went with, if I was going with my heart, I'd go with Dan Hooker. If I was going with my head, I'll go with Gamrot. I was wrong here, because Dan Hooker put in a hell of a performance. We know the game of Gamrot. We know he's going to try and take you down at every occasion he can. And that was shown by the 15 attempts on the takedowns, 5 succeeded, which is for Dan Hooker is a good percentage. He was really good on the feet. Came to fight in that third round, or heading into that third round in his corner. He was saying, "I love this. I live for this." And when you come for a Dan Hooker fight, you know you're going to be entertained, and we were entertained. Seeing that in with Gamrot style was probably the perfect thing you could have done for a Gamrot fight, because the last few, no offense, have been a bit boring. We know his style, we know what he's trying to do. I think he is a very likable person. When you actually watch again the embedded shows, you can see how likable Gamrot is. But when we're talking about watching fighting, the majority of the UFC fans want to see a Dan Hooker style fight, and again, him being in front of I would say more like a biased crowd in his favor was beautiful to see, because Dan's had a few and far between wins recently, and this one felt like one he deserved. So great to see him do that against a highly ranked opponent. Gamrot, it's hard for him because his style isn't appealing, and he's still having to fight people who are like 5+ ranking spots behind him instead of looking forward, and he'll probably have to continue to do that. He'll have to go on a crazy win streak. He'll have to continue to win, because he hasn't got the style, he hasn't got the promos, and that's the unfortunate factor of where he is within the lightweight rankings. But Dan Hooker has a lot to look forward to, and I'll be very, very interested to see who the UFC match him up with next. Next, we're going through Tai Tuivasa and Jairzinho Rozenstruik. This was a fight that I really felt we were going to get a knockout in. Maybe because it's the heavyweight division. Maybe it's because I've seen both men, and I've seen Jairzinho striking. I've seen Tai can bang with the best of them. This going all 3 rounds was a shock to me. I'm sure multiple people would have had, victory by knockout on either side. And the fact that it went all 3 rounds was a disappointment, if I'm not going to lie to you. I feel like Jairzinho knew, if I can pick Tai apart, I can get out of here with the victory very, very easily, because that's not Tai's game. Tai wants to bang, Tai wants to fight, and playing a kickboxing game was only going to lead one way, and that was Jairzinho winning that fight and winning it in dominant fashion. Where Tai goes now, I think he's 5 losses on the bounce. Not ideal at all. I don't know. I think he has to fight up and comers. He has to stay away from a couple of those up and comers who have that kind of kickboxing style, or the hybrid heavyweight fighters that we see today. So yeah, I think with Tai, he's at a bit of a crossroad. 15-8. Jairzinho continues to march on. He's again a little bit of a doldrum. He's lost to some people that potentially he will have to rematch against, and if they want to take that rematch, which is probably going to cause a bit of a logjam at heavyweight, but hopefully he can get another top fighter and name involved, and see how he can continue to push up, because he had a little bit of a rocky start, and he seems to have found his ground as time has gone on. Looking at the final fight of the main card, we had Lingji Liang the Leech versus Carlos Paratas, and this is one where I was wrong. I think I went for Leech. I'd missed the Leech. He's always exciting, but one thing I forgot about the Leech is that defense isn't really. He's not focusing on defense a lot of the time. If he gets hit, he's trying to hit back, and that leaves him out open to multiple counters, multiple situations where he's putting himself in danger, and Parates took advantage of that. And I was really impressed again seeing him in the embedded series. Brought him to the forefront. I've only ever watched one of his other fights previously, and seeing him against the Leech in such a dominant performance, knocking him out in the second round, I think, yeah, you got to give your hats off to him. He's establishing himself. He's beaten a relatively big name in the welterweight division, and it's now time to start climbing those rankings. But yeah, very, very impressed, and yeah, I could love to continue to see his ascent through the welterweight division. Looking at the rest of the prelims, again, nothing really crazy to write home about. I say the Casey O'Neill victory was relatively impressive. I missed the final fight of the prelims with Junior Taffa and Volta Walker. Victory by heel hook. I will have to relook over that. I was only able to watch the main card and some of the earlier prelims. But yeah, I'll say the Casey O'Neill one really stood out to me. Also seeing Herbert Jones lose to Jack Jensen was a really interesting and entertaining fight as well. And yeah, the rest of the card was interesting, maybe not spectacular. Main takeaways from this, I guess, in terms of our predictions is, I'll say we were wrong with the Izzy victory, because that's what I really wanted, let's be honest. So we didn't get that correct. We got the Kai Kara France pick correct. We got the Dan Hooker pick incorrect, because I think we went with Gamrot. And then we got the Jairzinho Rosenstrike pick correct, and the Leech pick incorrect. So I think we went 2 of 5, which isn't great. We're going to get better next time. I think if I go and remove all bias in my predictions, then I'll do a lot better, and that's what we're going to be doing going forward. But I'll still let you guys know who I'm a fan of and who I'm not a fan of. Hopefully you've enjoyed, guys. Let me know what your fight of the night was, your future fights for Dricus, future fights for Izzy, for Kai Kara France, for Steve Erzek, your takeaways for Dan Hooker. I want to hear it all, guys, so we can have some interesting conversation and start to think about what's next for the UFC. We're going to be also covering some of the upcoming recently announced fights soon, so don't miss that out. And hopefully you like some of the content that's coming out of this channel. Please make sure to like, subscribe, and yeah, I'll catch you guys soon.